be two-wheel drive, four-wheel drive, you know the drill. It does not matter what you drive. This is your All-Terrain Nation, and I'm your host, David Boyd. And I'm actually on time tonight. I see somebody's already commented, hey, he's on time tonight. And a lot of problems last week, but we'll fight through any problems tonight, man. What is going on, everybody? I'm super pumped tonight. We've got Mr. Matt, Mr. Coderman. I don't know how to present him, but let me I gotta unmute Matt here. Let me bring him into the show, and let's see. Boom, there we go. Matt, welcome to All-Terrain Nation, buddy.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm super excited.
Yeah, I'm super jealous because you got kind of the build that I was going for initially, and then, my wife kicked in and my friends kicked in and said, "Hey, you probably should get a four-door." But welcome to the show, man.
Well, thank you.
So you're on the East Coast. You're in the East Coast, man. You're up in the New England area, and what a time to get a Bronco with removable doors and a top that comes off, and you get it about 3 weeks before the cool weather sets in.
Yeah, so basically the day that I got it delivered, I had to wear a sweatshirt to go pick it up because our weather, New England weather is weird. It always is just, one day it's hot, one day it's cold. In fact, right now it's all just rainy and cold. Ugh. So I'm driving it with everything closed up, and it's a great vehicle to do that, but I really wish I could obviously drive it doors off, top off, and I don't know. I might have to wait till the spring at this point.
Well, so obviously I'm assuming you were a very, very early order, right?
Yeah, so I actually reserved on July 13th, pretty much as they were actually premiering it. And I was like, I must have that. And I basically just opened up like 7 windows, kept having a crash, kept refreshing. I was like, I'm finally in. And yeah, I got my order in, or my reservation in rather. And then I actually had an instant when I had it in place, my dealership actually changed hands.
Oh,
so
no.
I get an email from Ford saying that your $100 deposit has been returned. Ooh. When I tell you that my heart sunk thinking my order's gone, like I'm never getting one. And I called the dealer. Now it's a new dealer. They're like, oh, we have no idea. We're still trying to get it situated. Come to find out, Ford had in place that if you switch dealerships, if dealerships changed hands, legally they had to return the money.
Right.
Because I guess it was just an accounting nightmare.
Oh, I'm sure.
So at that point, I had zero skin in the game. So I'm like, great. They're going to be like, you don't get a Bronco because you haven't even put the $100 in. But fortunately, I got the build, and I was super stoked. It was like a 628 build. And then all of a sudden, it was a 7.2 blend date, 2021. I'm getting super excited. I'm in Florida. I'm on vacation. I'm waiting for this thing to be built. Crickets. Just nothing. Then all of a sudden we start getting all the MIC related information on the Bronco forums, all sorts of issues, maybe it's a bigger problem. Oh crap, it is a bigger problem. Now here we are, and we're going to start delaying them. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh yeah, no, you're just not getting it for a while, so you just have to wait.
Well, so what was that like? I mean, there was definitely some chaos with that, and I've said it on the show many times. I was told early May, hey, insider told me, hey, you might want to wait on this for a little bit. We're having all kinds of problems. And I know Ford they had to start building these things. So they were like, well, we'll build them. And if nobody notices, well, those early Broncos were like very noticeable, like the honeycombing in the top. And you ordered a 2-door with no soft top option. Like it had to be a nightmare, and Ford wasn't telling you much, right?
Yes, so that's kind of been my biggest problem. Is I understand there's going to be hiccups. It's obviously a first year product. There's obviously constraints in supply chains. Like there's a lot of factors here, but that really is no excuse for the fact that Ford just does not provide as much information, or I should say even some cases no information. Right. So I feel like I've gotten more of my information from YouTubers, from the Bronco forums, from one of the Facebook groups where people pop in and they'd be like, hey, just to let you guys know, there's this thing called Dirt Mountain. Here's a picture. And I'm like, great, my Bronco's built, but this is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, I drove up there, and I was in Michigan, and, seeing like all these Broncos just everywhere, hardtops just everywhere. And I kind of felt bad for people. I was like, well, mine's not being built yet. So I was like, I guess, I don't have to suffer as much. And then you get people like you are getting yours, and I'm over here going, man, I just hope mine gets built one of these days.
Yeah, so I kept seeing the Dirt Mountain photos, and I would zoom in like CSI level and be like, is that a Velocity Blue 2-door? Could that be mine? And it's kind of funny because in the way of technology, I ended up getting to talk to somebody that works at the plant.
Mhm.
And I was able to kind of communicate with them a little bit. And they didn't give me inside information, but they did kind of give me like an update in the sense of, hey, in a couple of weeks, you may actually see some updates. They got some progress happening, blah, blah, blah. And it was kind of, for me, it was unprecedented that we had this level of access. But at the same time, I feel like it also was kind of a disservice because, like I said, we wanted more information. As reservation holders, we want to know, like, what's happening.
Right.
And I feel like a lot of times we didn't.
Well, I get it too, because if they say too much, then everybody fusses like, hey, I'm not doing it. I'm not getting my stuff. I'm not getting this. And then if they don't give you enough, it's the same thing. It really was a no-win for Ford, I guess, really.
Yeah, I think it was. And honestly, I think with technology, we expect, like, they showed the photos on the line. And now I have a photo of my Bronco coming off of the line. I mean, I think what we want is we want to be able to dial in and see like a live stream of our Bronco going down the assembly line. But of course, we know the reality is you can't.
Well, I know some things that something fun may like that come down the road pretty soon. So never say never on that. But yeah, well, and then you get your Bronco, and then you get a picture of it coming off the line, which I'd known about that for quite a while. That they were taking pictures from June, July, I think, is when they started taking pictures of everybody's Broncos, and it was a test. They were like, well, people like this. Will they respond to it? And what did you think of that when you open up there's a link to your email and you're like, what is this extra surprise?
So I loved it first off, right? I saw the photo, and then of course I'm seeing people say, oh, it's not really yours. They just grabbed a two-door Velocity Blue, same spec, and they send the same thing to everybody else. Right. So now I'm like, again, I'm back to investigating. Like, I don't know why I'm this invested, but I am. And I'm looking at there's actually on my photo, there's numbers on the front bumper. And those numbers actually coincide with my rotation number, which is when it went through the line on that day. Right. And I can see that same number on my window sticker.
I will say,
like, that's mine.
Yeah, I will say I did read a lot of nastiness, and I know the person who set all this, to set all the pictures up and stuff. And there was a lot of nastiness at people, being like, well, that's not real. Why, you're like, why the effort it would take for them to literally change the background picture, you're like, come on, man. But I get it. I really do, though. I get it, because it was such a nightmare for people, and still is a nightmare for some people of like we all ordered these things way back in 2020. And that seems like now, going through COVID and everything, like that was a nightmare in itself. And then the stress of ordering a vehicle that nobody got to see. I mean, we saw it in that video. After that, it was like a week later, I think Ford showed them testing at the Rubicon and Moab, and kind of were teasing it, not teasing purposely, but, letting everybody see, hey, this thing is capable. And then, we wait, 15 months or so.
Yeah, I think that, like I said, there's a lot going on, and it's kind of funny, right? Because at the end of the day, we're talking about a vehicle, right? It's not life or death, but you are putting real money up. There's a lot of people I've seen in the forums, and I know a couple personally, that they kept their old vehicle because they expected to have it this summer. I know myself, I actually planned a couple events, one of them being a camping trip in around August, because I figured it'll be completed in July. I'll probably have it at the end of August. Yeah. And I mean, at the end of the day or whatever, I didn't get to go, but it's just, there's a lot, people had a lot riding on it, and, they were let down a lot.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And, well, so I will say this. I said when they brought that thing out, like, it was such a home run. There was a lot of things that we were excited about. They show that thing whooping through the desert, just jumping, and you get to see like the independent front suspension bouncing around. And then like the disappointment kicks in of like the reveal pictures, like the Nintendo looking Bronco, and then the one with the doors, with the holes in the doors, or the baseball leather seats. And it was just like constantly like just letdown after letdown. And it was fitting, though, that everybody kind of had to wait that we've done, and that to get it was a one more waiting period.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because with the two-door, I think like what I had envisioned in my mind and what I ended up ordering is, I would say, pretty close. But like you mentioned, like those doors, they're essentially tubeless. They are tubeless doors in a sense, but
Yeah.
they're illegal. You actually could drive with those on the road. But for whatever reason, they're just not available. Or like like really simple things like the accessory rail.
Yeah.
I don't know why that's not available.
Yeah, I scratched my head with that one too because they really made it a point to focus on that. And then they were like, well, Four Wheel Parts started revealing some of their stuff, and even they were like, oh, we're going to do this accessory rail. And I don't know if it's something legally, some piece that you're mounting to the dash that legally, that if you were in an accident, somebody could get hurt, or if there's some weird thing with that, maybe something with the airbag system. There has to be some reason that they pulled back on that real quick.
That's actually, I never really thought of it from the airbag perspective. You have the airbags in the dash, and they are going to kind of lift up a little bit. So it is very possible that in some safety testing that they've done, behind closed doors, feel like, oh, the airbag gets tripped up. Because that thing's mounted there. It's not just sitting there where it could be blown away.
Yeah. Or, there's Jeep guys that like to put stickers over because the airbags in the Jeep are between the two air vents, which they are in the Bronco as well. But these guys will vinyl wrap their dashes. And I'm like, are you kidding me, man? I mean, the odds of it not allowing the airbag to come out are pretty slim. But I'm like, I don't need more issues. In a crash, airbags in general have so many issues, whether it be just the constant recall, it seems like, of them. And I know Cigar Texan here's waiting on his Bronco that's sitting at a dealership over an airbag. He can't pick it up because Ford had like 500 of them that got folded the wrong way. But yeah, airbags always seem to be a pain in the butt in the auto industry.
Well, that's like I know, I forget where I seen it, but I saw a video of, rather than getting the specific seats that they wanted, they just got covers that actually, it's not just like over the seat, they actually attach to the seat in a way.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, if the seats themselves have airbags, which I honestly don't know, I'd have to look at my Bronco, but if they do for side curtain, that's going to impede that. And that could be, really bad. If you get into an accident, that could cause a real big issue for you, but as well as, say insurance related things, it could just become a real sticky situation.
Oh yeah, definitely. So you pick your Bronco up, or I guess you get I'm assuming the dealership called you or something, said, hey, it's here. Or did you know before the dealership knew it was going to be there?
So I knew that it shipped, and it shipped on September 29th. I don't remember the exact date. I think it was either September 28th or September 29th. Ford told me that it shipped. And the delivery tracker estimated that I would have it the end of October.
Right.
Like, I think it was like the 24th or 25th or something. And I was like, okay, whatever. Like, so I sent a quick text to my, the rep that I've been working with at my dealership and said, hey, it's on its way. Because I don't know if they get notified. And I'm pretty sure he just wanted to never hear from me again.
I think a
lot of updates he didn't have.
I think a lot of salesmen are like that. They're like, I don't want to hear anymore from these people.
Yeah, I want to go back to selling things that aren't Broncos.
Yes.
But so then the following week, 7 days later, he sent me a text that said Bronco here. And I was like, this has to be a joke. Like, there's just no way. So of course I call him back immediately and I'm like, hey, did it really show up? Yeah, it just came off the truck. It hasn't even gone through inspection.
Oh, wow.
I was like, I'll be there in 10 minutes. I live right up the street.
Right.
I immediately flew up there. I see it still all wrapped up. Like, it was just the greatest thing to see it sitting there, with all of its dirt and everything, because it was obviously on rails and, convoy and everything.
Yeah.
And here it is sitting in person, in front of me, kind of a surreal moment there. But they beat the delivery estimate by about 3 weeks.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I think sometimes once it's out of Ford's hands and it hits shipping, Ford just estimates, hey, this is what it should take, but it's up to shipping to, they prioritize however they do to get things where it needs to be. So sometimes, I think, Ford tells a dealership, but there's that middle guy that doesn't talk to really either of them.
Yeah. I also wonder if, and I have no information on this, just pure curiosity, if Ford actually led with it's been shipped and it's been, or it's been built and it's been shipped and now it's been delivered, they actually happened prior to that. Like, for instance, mine allegedly was built and completed on the 28th. Mm-hmm. But was it really completed maybe towards the beginning of September? And they essentially were just kind of managing expectations. Like, they wanted they wanted it to be early because for once you get excited about something.
I wouldn't say so on that, because at building cars, I worked for Nissan building cars, and I kind of know they have short time they need to be in their yards. And Nissan here in Middle Tennessee they're one of the biggest plants in the world, let alone are the biggest plant in the United States, and their yard is massive. And I've seen where the MAP plant, and they have small yards. They have to get these things out of there. So I just think that especially yours being on Dirt Mountain, they need to prioritize that space, and they need it kind of out of there.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Although it was interesting because mine came from, based on the window sticker, and I don't know if it's still held true, it came by rail.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like assured by so many different people that's going to take a few weeks just because of all the switches and everything that's involved in that whole process.
Well, I know my buddy Luke with Lifestyle Off-Road, his was rail, and it ended up in Kansas City, and it sat in Kansas City for like a week. Just sat in a car, and I don't know if I don't know if it's people shortages right now to get things moved or what it is, but then I have heard a lot of people on the very East Coast, like where you're at, in like 3 days. It's crazy. Some of the, once again, is it prior? We need these carts back. We got to keep moving. What is the deal?
Yeah.
So you said your dealership was bought out, and I keep saying my buddy Lifestyle, but he had the same problem as you were doing. So he switched to Granger. He had heard his dealership, and so he just moved his reservation. Your dealership, I guess, just never said, hey, or how did you know?
Well, so I basically got an email from Ford saying that my deposit had been refunded. Okay. And, that, of course, alerted me that something's kind of off. I got into a very unique situation where I actually have a friend that he's kind of, he works with a dealer group that ended up buying my local dealer. Mm-hmm. So I was able to reach out and, essentially ask some questions. But I was pretty much in the dark, and, they didn't reach out to me right away, which I guess maybe they didn't have any information. Why would they?
Right.
But yeah, I never really had an option. As far as I know, I never had an option to change where I would be ordering from.
Right. And I do feel for some people who've had these nasty dealers that did markups and stuff. And I don't think your dealership didn't do a markup on you, did they?
So they didn't do a markup, but it did have a sticker on it. Okay. So when I went to go look at it, I took all these photos of the car. I'm showing my wife everything. All of a sudden I see this little mini sticker next to the window sticker. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, what is this? I walk up close to it. I look at it. Of course, it says market adjustment.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, I don't want to play this game.
Right.
So I just straight up asked the guy, it happened to be my sales guy that was showing me the vehicle for the first time. And I pointed to it and I'm like, I'm not paying that, right? And he's like, no, they're putting that on every vehicle. For some reason, you choose not to take it. It's going on the lot like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is,
and I had to believe him because I didn't have it in writing at that time, but
right.
I am happy to say that it did work out.
Well, did you initially, when you ordered yours, you went in January, you went to the dealership, and did you sign the dealer agreement or whatever when you ordered it?
So I emailed everything out to what I wanted. He built the order. He sent me back a PDF saying that it was all set. Mm-hmm. I didn't hear about going and physically signing it till months later.
Oh, wow.
And at that point, I kind of played on the side of, I'm going to be the nice customer until I don't have to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm not necessarily saying that's a good thing. Honestly, if you order a vehicle, anything like that, get it in writing and get your signature on there. We just saw with that other dealership, like it wasn't their signature, so they didn't want to honor it.
Yeah.
You want to make sure that all that stuff's in place.
Right. And for me, I don't know if I'm any more protected than anybody else, but I have emails where I emailed my dealerships like, look, man, I'm paying MSRP and that's it, because I expected what we have now, not to the extent, because you always think, okay, the first couple months, it's everybody wants that new car that has money and don't need to wait, or they can pay not to wait. But to see it continue on the way it has for several months now, and just seems to be getting worse and worse and worse. The first editions, I don't think they're collectors, even though I know they didn't ever produce what they said they were going to produce. I just think it's a gimmick. But I would also hate to go to pick my first edition up, that was what, $65,000, and then the dealership's like, oh, that's $100,000 now. Like I would be a little upset with that one, but I know when I go, I have to go talk to my dealership this coming week anyways. I'll have my video camera with me, so I'll What I'm
Keep
saying
him
is
honest.
start a YouTube channel, everybody. If you wanna go, because we've read all these people's, like the one guy in Pennsylvania that got screwed over by a dealership he worked at. I mean, he
Yeah.
wasn't now working there, but like he knew people there, and they were like, "Hey, sucks to be you," kind of thing. And oh man, so many people have been burnt.
Yeah, and I think, I'm hoping, I'm not positive of this, but I'm hoping that other dealers are seeing the hellstorm that comes down from social media, the power of social media. I know, what is it? I think the guy's name, Mike from Ford, he seems to step in, although it doesn't seem like he can do too
Oh,
much.
Mike Levine. No,
Yeah.
Mike Levine is he's the head of their PR. He has no power. He deals with journalists like me, and that's the extent of his power. But yeah, I'm amazed though. I hate to cut you off like that. Early on, people are having all these problems. They're like, keep tagging Mike in their Twitter and this and that. And I'm like, the guy doesn't do anything, man. But
So
sorry,
guess
I didn't
there
mean to
was
cut you off.
one, like, I forget, it was a Mark E or something. There was one example where he stepped in and allegedly did something. Now, who knows what he actually did?
Yeah.
And I think people were like, "Oh, he's kind of the savior, right? We'll ask him." And then I know that fairly recently he essentially came out and basically, in a matter of words, said that it's what they want to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is, I'm sure, not what customers wanted to hear.
Well, and I think now Ford is on for the 22s is requiring dealers to have the customer sign it. I think they're for any order now. That's a big push on Ford to that to kind of maybe they know it's going to happen. Like I said, the first couple of months they know it's going to happen. Look at the C8 Corvette, man. You still, if you walk into a showroom, you're never getting a C8 for what it says on the window. But it is what it is. You got a hot vehicle, and clearly Ford has a home run on their hands.
Yeah.
So let's start back at 2020. You see the video like everybody. It took me 3 days to order mine because I was like, I don't know, man. I've never seen this. It looks great. Blind faith, you jump in. Was it always going to be a two-door?
When I made the reservation, yes. When I was initially watching the video, I did have in the back of my mind, I have a larger family. The four-door makes way more sense in every sense of the word, right?
Yeah,
It is more practical. It's going to have more space.
Because you have 5 kids, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. In a 4-seating SUV.
Yes. So yes, we're a family of 7 that I drive a 4-seater. Yes.
Oh, wow.
And then my other car is a 2-seater. So yeah, I'm doing really good with being able to take the family anywhere. But it's actually kind of funny, and also one of those things where, like, do I even want to say this? But I didn't know that the 2-door only came with 2 seats in the back.
Okay.
The photos, it clearly shows it.
Mm-hmm.
I just whatever reason didn't even notice it when I was flipping through the photos in the premiere.
Right.
And I was like, oh, it'll be, harder to get in because it's 2 doors, but at least will be the 3 seats.
Yeah.
Nope. Found that out a couple months later.
Yeah.
When I was looking at some more video, and I was like, oh, that's not good.
Well, did you stick with when you put your reservation in? It tries to pin you down on what what you want to order, whether it be Badlands, Black Diamond, or whatever. But we didn't know anything about any of these, really. I think they said Badlands had the sway disconnect. Other than that, like, we really didn't know anything. So did you order Black Diamond initially, or were you all over the map?
So I was kind of all over the map. I tried to get a first edition. I honestly, the reason I got it is because, like, it checks all the boxes.
Right.
Like, this is insanely expensive, but at the same time, turns out it wasn't that far off from where I ended. But
right.
It was like, it has everything, so let's go for it. That was gone immediately. And so now it was between the others. And I started to look at, what do I see myself doing with the vehicle? I want it to be somewhat presentation. I want it to look a certain way, but I also want it to be functional. And it just kind of came down to, we have kids, so the vinyl interior is going to be a plus, can easily wash it.
Yeah.
Wash out floors, same deal.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of just came down to Black Diamond kind of fit where I feel like I would be the best. I did want the 12-inch screen. I really do wish that they had offered the high package on all of the trims.
Yeah.
Maybe in the future they'll do that. Hopefully they do for others. Because I feel like it is just kind of strange that, because you've gotten this specific model, you can't have the higher end sound system or even just the entertainment system.
Well, yeah. And let's be honest. Everybody's complaining about the sound system now in these high-end Lux packages. It's not like, the only thing you're getting really is that big screen. And having rode and drove a first edition, I will say that screen is it's magical. I don't know why this big TV set in the middle of a dash is so cool, but it is. But my Jeep now has a 7.5-inch screen. I'm sure the 8-inch. Like I always say, I just need it to hook up to my cell phone so I can listen to podcasts or whatever I'm doing. I don't care about a radio anymore. If it never had a radio, I wouldn't miss it.
So this was the first vehicle I've owned. My wife has it, but has CarPlay. So I'd never had that before. And for me, I was like, wireless CarPlay, that's even better because I don't have to have a cable all the time. I don't really care what the rest of it can do. But then it's like, but I do want it to sound good. And the base system does not.
Yeah.
It is 100% going to be upgraded. And it needs to be.
Yeah.
Even to just get some more, honestly, any amount of bass would be nice. Because right now it sounds like a cell phone.
Yeah. I'll be honest, though. I think where Ford hit a home run with the openness of the top, they missed the mark because Jeep has the speaker bar that goes right across it's above your head. And it doesn't take much decent speaker to give you some bass. You can hear it right above you. And with the Bronco, the way they put them all the way in the back, of course, you're a 2-door, so it's not as far as the 4-door, but it's still noticeable. And then there's these little pods. And then they're kind of fixed to that is the sound bar that's just totally in your way. Yeah, I'm with you. It seems like it'd been better just to put better speakers in the thing.
Well, there's that, and there's also like the basically the kick speakers, the ones that are underneath and in the front are, of course, they can't be on the doors, or I shouldn't say they couldn't be on the doors. They just decided not to for mechanical reasons. They're pushed so far under the dash that you don't really get any range out of them.
Oh, wow.
Because the rest of the vehicle is obviously covering them up. But then they put the 4.5-inch on the top. So that actually just kind of blows out the sound. Now, I'm not an audiophile by any stretch of the imagination.
Right.
But I do know what sounds good to some extent. And with the way the stereo is now, it's just really flat.
Yeah. And I don't, the first edition, obviously, it had the B&O system that I tested. And I don't remember it sounding bad, but I was so happy to actually get to drive a Bronco for the first time. I probably overlooked that. Did you sort of at first kind of overlook some of that, and the more you live with it, go, oh, this ain't as fun as I thought?
So when I took delivery of it, I had already gone to the Bronco off-rodeo, and I had actually driven a Bronco off-road and got to basically have it all day. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until after lunch, probably like the last maybe hour or two of the session, that I finally turned the stereo on. And I think at that point, I was so excited to be in the Bronco that I was like, oh, that sounds good. I don't know what everyone's talking about. Like, this is amazing. Hook up my car, CarPlay. Like, this sounds perfect. And then when I took delivery and I was driving home and I'm experiencing the vehicle, I'm like, oh, let's throw in some radio. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute. This isn't good. This isn't any kind of good. And it's just kind of like, okay, well, let's see what we can do for upgrading it.
Right. Terrence Mooney, thank you so much for that $19.99. And guys, I hate to interrupt here, but I've got 124 viewers and only 37 likes. So if you guys could smash the like button, all that does is just helps the algorithm find new people for me, and I appreciate that. So anyway, so the speakers are, what will you think you'll end up going with?
So I actually had Focal for a different project, and the 4.5-inch speakers fit.
Oh, nice.
So I'm actually going to use those, and I'll just have to get the 6.5s that go in the obviously in the footwell.
Right. Now you have the Sasquatch package, correct?
Yes.
Was that always on the big 35s? Was that day one? I have to have this.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
me
the
too.
reason for that was for two reasons. One, I knew I'd be indecisive on what wheels to buy. Because I've gone through this with other cars, I could never decide on like the look I wanted to go for.
Right.
So I felt like buying it like that is going to come like that. I figured for the suspension side of things, it's been tested. Everything's just kind of, it's just going to work out of the box.
Right.
I like working on cars. I like tinkering. But at the end of the day, it is essentially my daily driver. So it needs to be reliable. And I don't want to be blowing shocks and things like that. Down the road, if I want to modify things, maybe I will.
You seem like the kind of guy that's going to modify something eventually.
Yes.
And once you do it, man, it's a road you cannot stop. You have to make everything better. But I'm with you. And I've built off-road vehicles, man. I've done it for 20 years, and the idea of me being able to buy it just kind of done. I was like, that's kind of what won me over. I'm like, I'm kind of in with that. I don't have to put 35s under it, and I don't have to lift it and all this stuff, because the older I get, I'm just kind of like, I want to go out and enjoy it. I mean, yes, building is part of the fun, but I think right now I'd rather build it, break it, and then improve it.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone's going to have what, they're either just going to buy it off the line or they're going to modify it. And I mean, honestly, what I look at as a Bronco is modern. It's like adult Lego, right? Like you can make it whatever you want. And I know we have SEMA next week. We're just going to see an entire, it is next week, right?
Yep. Next Monday.
Okay.
Monday through.
Making sure on the calendar there.
I've got my plane trip is already paid for, so I'll be there.
I wanted to go. I wanted to go for many years, and now because of Bronco, I definitely wanted to go. But
and this is going to be a year of the Bronco for sure.
Yeah, and we'd already seen. It's funny because I know in previous years of SEMA, we didn't see all these like behind the scenes. This is what will be there. It was just kind of like you got there, and that's when you saw it.
Right.
So I'm kind of. Have you gone to SEMA before?
No. This will be my first time. I planned on going in 2020, and well, we know what happened there, but and even at this one, it's going to be somewhat of a down year for it, because the whole mask thing you have to wear, and whatever your politics on that, I don't care. But for me, a journalist that's trying to interview people, it kind of does make it a little more difficult. But I know I'm supposed to meet up with the Pickens family, and I know I've got some interviews lined up. I'm actually going to interview some of these Jeep companies, and I'm going to bug them about Bronco, because I'm curious. Four Wheel Parts was smart. They jumped right in. Like they knew Ford's, especially when those initial order numbers came out, everybody, major manufacturing had to be like, oh, I got to get in on this. So there's a Q company that's big with the Jeeps that I'm going to interview and bug them about.
Yeah, I think a lot of companies are, I would say a lot right now, but you will see a lot more companies are going to come around to, hey, we've been Jeep since our inception, but the Bronco is real. I have friends that own Jeeps, and it's not like, oh, you have a Bronco, I have a Jeep, let's hate each other. It's more like, hey, let's go off-roading.
Yeah, exactly. And well, I will say this too, Bronco, not being the old Bronco that we think of, the whole OJ style Bronco, it now benefits from it let Jeep sort of pave the way for aftermarket, because, even in the mid 90s, Jeep had a little bit, but it wasn't to where it is now. Like it's a $1 billion industry. So they're going to benefit now from all these companies, because there will be similar products. That light bar, the sound bar probably fits perfectly in a Jeep. There's some similar things that are going to work. So it's only good for both companies as well, that, hey, competition breeds innovation,
Absolutely.
So you got the Sasquatch package, color. I know for me and my wife Kelly, and the audience knows, color has been a nightmare for us to come up with and figure out. So was it always what color did you end up with?
Velocity blue.
I always get that and lightning blue mixed up. But was that the color
when it first came out?
Was that always the color that you were like, yep, that's an easy choice?
No, I actually wanted race red.
Really?
Yeah.
You're the first person for race red.
So it's kind of thing is red is my favorite color, and as you can kind of tell from like the channel and stuff, like red is just my favorite color.
Yeah.
And it kind of became two things. One, I wanted a different color than I've ever owned, and my weekend fun car is red. So I really didn't want it to look. I mean, granted, it's gonna look different, but I don't want the color to be similar.
Yeah. Yeah. Suddenly your neighbors are like, man, has this guy got a tinfoil hat over there? What's going on?
Everything's red.
My shutters, my door, everything.
But I changed, and when I was doing like the build and price and before, like in this past January when I was finally putting together the full order,
right?
I changed the color at least 3 times before I submitted it to my delership, because I was
really?
like, what? Like, because the thing is, like, it's not like something that you can just change, right? Like if you pick something, you're like, I don't like that bumper, I can just swap out that bumper.
Yeah.
I know I can wrap it, but just the longevity and the look and stuff, I'm just not really a big fan of it. I prefer paint.
Yeah.
And it's not easy to repaint a vehicle, nor is it cheap.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, unless you go to Mako, and then it depends on who you get that day of and what color or quality paint they had.
And then all the windows are orange too.
Right. Every seal and everything around it. So you chose the blue, and did the wife have a say? I know mine was like, hey, I have to drive this thing too.
So if she did have a say, she had an opinion. Honestly, she didn't even see the like why I was buying it to begin with. And so there was that whole conversation. Then there was you were going to get it a manual. She doesn't drive manual, so oh no, I can't even drive it. Then as it happens, couldn't get manual with Sasquatch, so
Right.
here I am with automatic. But got the 2.7 as a result, so I guess it kind of all worked out.
Right.
But she didn't. I mean, it's funny. She didn't really love the color when she saw it in photos, but she hasn't said like, "Oh, I hate that color." So I think she likes it. She drives it.
Right. And what does she think of it?
I mean, so she's kind of more like an SUV girl, but she does like it. She's actually excited to drive it in the snow because it'll be the first time she's had a vehicle that can actually handle in snow and not need all sorts of modifications with tires and such. So, I mean, I'm excited for it too, but so there'll be some days she'll be taking it to work.
Mr. Kevin, thank you for that super chat. And let's see, who else did I don't mean Cigar. I appreciate that. Guys, thank you all for the super chats. By the way, they do help fun things like SEMA, so I do appreciate that. So I seen you did a video on car seats, and I've seen another channel or so that has done car seats. But you're the first, kind of two-door, really. I mean, there's a couple lesser video channels out there, but you put a lot of good quality into your videos. And your last video, what was it? The last one was the car seat or the booster seat? I can't remember.
So that's actually a good question. Yes, the last one was the car seat, and it hasn't been as popular as the other videos. I didn't expect it to be.
Yeah.
Because if you kind of look at it as like a funnel, you have to get people that like Broncos, like the two-door, have kids, and want to put car seats in the back.
Yeah, it's like the Matrix.
It's just going to be a small audience.
Yeah, exactly. But I know for me, of course I wanted a two-door, but I know I just anything Bronco, man, I watch it up and chew it up. But isn't it amazing though? Like, you've been a YouTuber for a while. It's not like you just decided Broncos to do this stuff. I've noticed if you put your heart and soul into a video sometimes though, they just never going to do anything, man. You feel like, oh man, this is some of the best work I've ever done. Does nothing. And then you could kind of half-ass something, put it together, and then it's got 10,000 views suddenly. And you're like, this doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I've done over the years of doing YouTube, I've done like multi-camera, professional audio, color graded, like the whole nine. I've watched tons of like Peter McKinnon's videos.
Oh yeah.
Who's kind of everyone knows who he is now, and try to mimic some elements of that because I'm like, that's what gets views.
Yeah.
And then I have a friend that does truck content, just truck content, and he has the exact same formula for every single one of his videos, and he's absolutely killing it on YouTube. And I'm not going to say he's not putting an effort because he has to be putting an effort.
Sure.
But he's not doing like drone, multi-camera, Hollywood production, content. Because I think at the end of the day, you need to create content that is valuable and is either valuable or entertaining. It has to meet one of those.
Yeah. I think I'm more the entertaining side. I don't know how valuable my content is, but I have fun doing it anyways.
I mean, honestly, I have a window sticker behind me, and I learned things about the window sticker from your last video. So they are actually educational as well.
Well, I appreciate. I have gotten a lot of good responses for that one, and I'll be honest. I was sitting here the other day struggling. I needed to get some as you know, you have to feed the beast. The beast will forget you real quick if you don't give it something to make it remember your channel. And I was bashing my brain and going, man, I needed to figure out something. And I've been keeping my window sticker up here. Like, I think it's going to change. Like, I've got my window sticker now, so nothing's going to change about it. And it just was like, you know what? I read that on Bronco 6G a couple months ago where they did the breakdown, and I was like, that might be kind of fun to talk about. And I thought I'll get 5 or 6 minutes out of that. Next thing I know, it's like 13-minute video or something. I was like, oh, okay, there we go. But so let's get into that a little bit. So what kind of made you get into YouTube a little bit? Because your channel's not small by any means. Over 3,000, I believe, or maybe more by now.
Yeah, but almost 3,800.
I've seen
the
you.
Broncos really helped with that.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure a lot of channels it's helped. But you initially you were all over the map with YouTube, right? Like just everywhere.
Yeah, so I mean, it's kind of always centered around cars to some extent, but I also did some business videos, and really the reason I started YouTube was actually just to get more acclimated with the tools because I was building corporate videos for some of my clients, and I was actually uploading them to YouTube unlisted. And I was kind of like, one day I was like, hey, you know what? Maybe I'll make a video on taking my car to the track just for the fun of it. And it became something where it's like, it's just a little hobby that I maybe do every couple months.
Yeah.
And then it was a couple years ago that I'm like, you know, this is still a hobby, but I'm going to take it more serious. I'm going to treat it like a job. It's just not going to be a 40-hour work week.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and then it becomes a second job. And
It does. And I'm not going to buy camera stuff, and I'm not going to upgrade. Yeah, none of that holds true.
What do you mean when you break cameras? Like right before, like literally this lens, and it's not really broke, but it's not going back on the camera. And yeah, right before we went on, my camera falls over and this lens pops off and everything's breaking. And I was like, great. Now I got to buy more. Oh, darn, I got to buy more camera gear. But, you know, some channels do get wrapped up in that. They think it's more about gear than it is the content. And just watching a lot of your stuff, definitely, I mean, you seem to have nice equipment you use to film your stuff with, but you seem to be, yes, it's definitely more about the content.
So it's kind of funny. The delivery video of the Bronco I did shoot with my Canon R, which is my main, like the workhorse, as people call it. But after that, the last 3 videos have all been shot with my iPhone.
Oh, yeah. No, man, my iPhone, I have people that'll ask me, how do you get started in YouTube? And I'm like, right there. Like, it's some of the best video anymore. The sound quality is great. And I've done 3 years with between this and another channel, mostly iPhone. I didn't really kind of go to the bigger cameras till recently. Yeah,
It's fun.
You don't need the expensive equipment anymore, man.
No, you don't. I mean, phones shoot 4K, and honestly, not a lot of people even upload in 4K because now you got to also remember that they're watching it on their phone.
Oh, I generally as a rule, I try to only upload 10K or 1080, and I've started to put some 4K stuff out, but like you said, you can see, and in the YouTube studio, you can see the back how people watch your stuff, and it's generally through phones. It's not. Yep. And I've noticed, I don't know if you've noticed that TV now more and more too. I'm seeing TV go above computers a little bit more and more.
Yeah, a lot of people do consume YouTube through their smart TVs or, you know, Chromecast or things like that, which it's a larger screen, but it's not super high resolution. Not everyone's running around with a 4K TV.
Well, if it would only broadcast right. So you do the video of taking delivery, and obviously it's kind of kicked your love of YouTube back in a little bit, and now it's time to, you gotta, like I said, you gotta feed the beast, man. And kind of where were you, like, not panicking, but were you like, man, there's so many places I could go with this? Yeah,
so the taking delivery was kind of like more or less an end to the saga of getting the Bronco itself.
Yeah.
But then, like you said, it did take off. I got super excited with that. The comments, you know, for me, you know, the views are great, but the comments are even greater, right? Because you're having a conversation with real people out there, and they give you tips and comments and you know, all sorts of hate as well. It all comes with it. But it just kind of invigorates you to just keep going. And then it becomes a thing of like, I'm not a massive channel with a huge budget, so I can't go build a $50,000 Bronco build.
Right.
I can't like go to the store and buy things and then create content out of it.
Right.
It's just not realistic. So yeah, I mean, to feed it, you have to be creative. And that's why I do things on, you know, like, how's the sound inside of the 2-door Bronco, you know, with the hard top, because a lot of people have seen videos with the soft top and the whistling and things like that. You know, how bad is it with the hard top?
Right.
And I've noticed maybe because it is a 2-door, there isn't as much content at the moment. There will be, I know it. And also because the MIC was delayed by for a lot of reasons, not as many people got them. And as a result, there's a lot of questions. And honestly, what I do is I stay on like the forums and like the Facebook group, and I see the questions that people are asking that don't get answers.
Right. Martin S. is asking, quick question. Do we ask the dealer for our $100 back from Ford? Martin, they're supposed to actually refund you. That's my understanding. Or my dealer's just putting it towards my Bronco. So just to answer that question real quick. And in the chats, guys, load your questions up. We will get to them. I'm just having a good time talking here to Matt. And definitely, if you guys got questions or comments, and after the show, go to Matt's channel, sub to this, and it's Coderman. And Matt, where does Coderman come from? Because I initially, once again, in the back door of YouTube, you can kind of see who subscribes to your channel. And I was like, I'm always interested people with a few subs. I'm like, who is this guy? And where does Coderman come from?
So I've always basically I'm a software engineer. That's my trade, and I have always been a gamer. And I needed some sort of a gamer tag at one point. And I kind of just came up with that. And then I didn't use it for a really long time. And then I was talking about doing YouTube, and my oldest son, we were kind of talking one day, and I was like, I wonder if I should reuse this. And he's like, you're not a superhero. I'm like, that's it. I'm using it. It's the greatest choice ever. Like, people are going to give me hate or they're going to love it.
Yeah. I figured it had something to do with software, but you never know in these times what people do. Let's see. Oh, YouTube car spotter Dave, what are you drinking tonight? I can't even. No, Woodford. I don't even remember, man, what I'm drinking tonight, but it's good. Guys, seriously, load up your questions, especially for like 2-doors. We don't, like they're selling 90% 4-doors. It seems like so. Primarily, our content has been 4-door Broncos, but I wrote it down at one point. I had somebody at one point wanted me to do some videos on 2-doors, and it's like it's kind of hard. 2-doors, that thing, it's kind of hard to talk about unless you got one in front of you.
Yeah.
How has the response been when you're driving down the street? Because I know that when I was in Michigan, surprisingly, there wasn't, and this was August, there still wasn't many on the road. Like I went to the Dream Cruise, which is a big deal, and there wasn't, I think, 2 there, plus the one I was in. And I was amazed. People would roll down their windows and just be like, yeah. And are you getting good responses out on the road?
I am. I'm also getting, so I've gotten a few different responses. I've gotten one in particular where someone asked me if it was a new Jeep. I thought that was interesting because it says Bronco and has a Ford on the back, but hey, it's cool. Great conversation starter. I had another guy that actually had at home a 70s Bronco,
right?
And we had a great conversation about that. He was asking me all sorts of questions about like the fuel economy and the reliability and things, which I can't speak to the reliability because I haven't owned it that long.
Right.
But it's, as far as like, road noise and things like that, we have had a great conversation there. And then, it's just, in parking lots or if you're, stopped at a light or something, you'll get some sort of a response. My dealer did tell me that I was the first one to get a 2-door out of their dealership.
Nice.
So a lot of the people at the dealership were super excited to see it and, asking me questions about it.
Yeah, and of course, you being a 2-door, it has to be even more of a kind of a head scratcher for people because, I mean, the 4-door, let's be honest, like if you saw it just quickly from behind, you go, oh, there's a Jeep. I mean, yeah, the taillights are different, but if it's dark out or whatever, you just glance at the thing, you're like, oh, cool, it's a Jeep. But the 2-door is it's so much bigger than the Jeep 2-door and just more substantial. And it has to, I would think it gets you a little bit of attention.
Yeah, I've seen, people refer to it as perfect proportions. I don't particularly dislike the 4-door, right? I drove the 4-door on the off-rodeo. We had one of the instructors hopped in the back with us. If I had the 2-door, I would have had to get out and then have him crawl into the back, which as an adult, it can be a bit of a challenge, especially with Sasquatch, I will say.
Have you done a Doug DeMuro style video where you got to get into the back and...
Yes. I should do it in the delivery video to show, like, how do you get into the back? And I even say right in there, like, you do have to step up because especially with Sasquatch and don't have any, I don't have the running boards, you have to step up into it.
Yeah.
And it takes some getting used to. And honestly, getting back out is the real trick.
Oh, yeah.
Especially from the back because you don't have anywhere to grab onto. You kind of just have to fall out of the vehicle.
Right. Yeah. And that was when I was going for the 2-door, I told my wife, I was like, look, we have a 10-year-old daughter at the time. I was like, that's kind of her problem. like eventually when she's a teenager, yes, it's harder to get in and out. But I was like, she can jump out the sides. I don't know, like totally impractical thoughts. But yeah, so I seen the video with your 2 children in the back, the twins, I guess it were. And how are they digging this thing?
Oh, they absolutely love it. So I actually took them to a Cars and Coffee over the weekend.
Oh, nice.
And tons, I mean, it was actually kind of funny because I have, I've obviously gone to Cars and Coffee a lot in the past, and vehicles are just parked where they're parked, and they usually will highlight certain vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
And I get there, and they're like, back up onto, it's like kind of like a hill.
Yeah.
They're like, back up onto the hill, put it there. And I was like, oh, okay, like, sure, why not? That, of course, got a lot of people to see it, take photos of it, ask questions, things like that. And my daughter actually mentioned, she's like, wow, a lot of people like this.
Yeah.
And my son was like, it's a fun truck or something like that to one of the guys. And, and then of course I just asked them outright, do they enjoy it? And they've been super excited.
Yeah. These things really are made for kids too. Like, it's an adventure fun vehicle. And I know, there's the kind of sentimental, the 60s, 70s, but these things, like, for me, that was part of the fun of wanting one of these is my brother had a Jeep. He had a YJ, and they used to, before he passed away, they used to go riding all the time, and she'd sit in the back seat and just love the thing. It did have the full roll cage in it, but still a little sketchy for a young kid to be back there. But so she bugged me forever. Hey, you got to buy a Jeep. You got to buy a Jeep. And I was like, well, we'll get a Bronco. Like, it's like, I didn't feel as dirty, kind of like, well, we'll try the new thing. And then now I have a Jeep in my driveway. So
this is my first off-road vehicle. Honestly, it's my first vehicle that I could drive it into dirt without major questions being asked.
Right.
And I come from a Ford family, so it kind of like made sense. I always saw the older Bronco, and I was like, oh, modern day version.
Yeah, exactly. So this being your kind of first off-road vehicle, what was your expectations? I'm assuming you went to the Bronco rodeo in Texas?
I actually went to New Hampshire.
Oh, well, that makes more sense, I guess.
So I just grabbed my buddy who is going to be ordering a 2022 soon, hopefully. Or I should say possibly, I should say hopefully. We went to the New Hampshire Off-Rodeo the day it opened.
Oh, nice, man. I've got a buddy that's one of the guides over there on that. But so you got to, that's some nice wheeling that they do over there. Cause I mean, nothing against the Texas one. I've seen that and it looks fun. It's kind of in between a Moab and an East Coast, but where they're doing it on that ski resort where you went, like, there's some tight spots they put you in and some nice, like, mud and like the unknown of slippage and stuff. So was that your first time really off-roading then?
As a driver, yes. So I had been a passenger and I had, done ATVs and stuff like that growing up. So I was used to being in the woods and on trails and things like that. But as far as driving a vehicle like that, and quite honestly, trusting a vehicle like that.
Yeah.
Because when you come around, some of the turns, and there's actually one in particular part where you're climbing up this massive rock slab, and the vehicle is pointed back about as far as you think it ever should be, that you can't even see in front of you now. All you see is sky and hood. Mm-hmm. And you're just trusting the guide to be like, once you hit this point, do not stop. Because if you stop, you're going to slide back.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I had a friend that was a drifter, and he got into off-roading, and he thought it was, it scratched that itch of, like, the adrenaline. Like, you're, especially drifter guys, you're out there kind of illegally racing and stuff. But he said off-roading got the kind of excitement of that, but you're also on private land. It's legal to have fun. And do you see it kind of like that?
I do. And also it was interesting because, like I mentioned kind of earlier, I've raced cars before. I track my car, things like that. So I go fast. And to do an off-road thing, it's all about slow. It's all about precision and, real slow climbing over obstacles, and maybe don't go over that rock because it's pointy. Mm-hmm. And it was a completely different world to me. And I think if I had just taken delivery of the Bronco and then headed up to New Hampshire to the mountains, I would not have had the level of fun that I did with the off-rodeo.
Yeah.
Because, like, they built the course, right? They are experts. Mm-hmm. And they give you, like I said, they give you that level of confidence that you can do this. And I just remember, a few different examples, not even if I was driving, but watching someone else drive, the vehicle is completely leaned to the left, where you couldn't even get in the passenger's door if you wanted to. And the guide's like, oh, no, it can lean more. It's totally fine. And everyone's like, are you sure? Like, is this thing going to flip over? So it just it was just a completely different experience to me.
Right. So you, because I've been back and forth whether I think for me, off-roading for years, I kind of have no interest in it. But do you feel like for the average person that it was well worth the cost of admission for that?
100%. Yeah, there was. I mean, I of course was a first timer, right? I'd
Hmm.
never driven on a trail, even a basic trail like that. It gets more technical, and they kind of layer it where they give you, the kind of the basics. They actually walk you through some sections,
Hmm.
and they get two volunteers to run kind of part of it and show you some of the pieces, and that kind of gets you acclimated with what the Bronco can do.
Right.
And then you get loaded up into your Broncos that you probably keep for the day,
Hmm.
although you can switch if you want. And you just go through the different trails, and then like after lunch, it gets even more technical.
Nice. Um, so you said you do some tracking a little bit. So you know what horsepower is like, and you have the 2.7 in your Bronco, correct?
Yes.
Was I'm assuming you're like me. If there's the biggest horsepower, I have to have it.
So I was gonna settle. I'm not gonna say, but I was gonna settle for the 2.3 for the manual.
Right.
That was like that to me was okay because I love manual cars.
Hmm.
So I figured I'll love a manual Bronco just as much. But when they said I couldn't have it with Sasquatch, it was kind of like I like the manual, but I like Sasquatch more. So automatic, here we come.
Yeah.
It's a no-brainer. I'm getting the 2.7.
Yeah. Yeah. And what's been your impressions of that motor?
I mean, overall, I would say it is met expectations, and to some extent has exceeded it a little bit.
Hmm.
I will say in sport mode, I mean, it obviously it doesn't open it up much, but the throttle response is definitely more jarring.
Right.
And I think for somebody that maybe is not driving a vehicle like that, it's going to be kind of that on-off switch. So maybe something to get used to.
Hmm.
But it also rev hangs a little bit, so it's it obviously because it keeps the turbo spooled.
Yeah.
It's more performant. It as much as I could say for an off-road vehicle, it's more performant.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean you could dump bigger turbos in this thing and stuff, but then they're going to take time to spool to get you a little bit more power out of it. And I'm sure you've seen them. The turbos they put in these things are just about that big. They're turbos only in name, really. But I was impressed with the 2.7, man. My what is it, a 3.6 I think in my Jeep. It's adequate. Like I don't feel like if I pulled out in front of a car, like I couldn't get out of the way. But at the same point, I'm like, it's kind of boring. And when I drove the 2.7 in the Bronco, I was impressed with it. Now, all these guys, and it's big on the forums, 0 to 60, 0 to 60. I'm like, I didn't buy this vehicle to be I'm not taking it to the drag strip. You got to off-road for the first time. I'm pretty sure there was no, hey, here's where our 0 to 60 time going up this hill is, Like,
No, I mean honestly, when we took the keys and we were driving from like the trailhead to the beginning of the first technical, I was in I think it was 4 low, and I never even thought to shift into too high to see like could this actually be peppy.
mhm.
I just kind of putted along with the rest of the group, and I don't think we went over 12 miles an hour for the majority of it.
Yeah. Yeah. But do you agree? Like, driving yours now, you go, man, this isn't my sports car.
I mean, so I kind of like I know when I get into it, and like it's funny you mentioned like merging or jumping out in front of a vehicle or timing, that sort of thing. It definitely does take a little bit of a pause because I'm like, there's obviously a delay, and it's obviously a heavier vehicle,
Hmm.
and the handling's not going to be like a sports car. I know it's not.
Right.
So if you are coming from a vehicle like that, it's definitely going to be something you're going to have to get used to. If you intend to do 0 to 60 pulls from lights, the Bronco's probably not for you.
Right. I guess
Although you
unless,
just fun doing it, I don't know.
right. Unless you're lined up with a Jeep, maybe like the two probably slowest things out there. Um,
Yeah.
so what have been some of the kind of disappointments, or have there been any sort of disappointments with this thing where you're just like, oh man, I kind of wish this was a little better.
Yeah, so I would say not in any order of importance, but the stereo, like we've mentioned, I think everyone's mentioned it. I expected it to be better. I don't know what I expected. I just expected it to be better. It has little quirks and annoyances and things like the horn honk when you close a door and the car's, the vehicle's still running.
Right.
It actually scared the crap out of me the first time I did it because I wasn't expecting it. Um, so it's those kind of like little things that are kind of interesting. I would say outside of that, I haven't really had that thing where I'm like, oh man, I wish I could fix this, or this is going to be a deal breaker for me long term. I may happen, but at the moment it hasn't.
Right. I know there was a couple things I noticed. Like, have you done any kind of time in a Jeep, a newer Jeep? The Wrangler out layout.
Yep.
So I noticed there was a few things like the trim. Like, I feel like the trim around the AC controls and stuff is very boring. Like the Jeeps, they've added a little bit of. I don't need chrome or anything, but it just is sort of bland. And a lot of plastic to this thing, which I want because it's going to get dusty and stuff. But I know for me, I just wish they could have done just a little more, I don't know, pizzazz to it a little bit. And the tack, I just wish that was all digital. I never, when I drove that one, I never looked at that thing. I always had the digital speedo there, and I was good with that.
Yeah, the tack is weird to me. I honestly don't know why it's a bar graph. Like, I'm not sure what they were going for. And I also don't understand the mixing of analog and digital. I just feel like if that whole thing was digital screen, you could have way more customization. So my dad has Mercedes-Benz, and I think is like I don't know the models, but it has the MBUX, which is like the fully interactive display. And a touch of a button, you can completely redesign how it looks.
Right.
So, I mean, I felt like maybe something like that would have been kind of cool. But it's, the mixture of analog and digital just seemed weird to me in this type of vehicle.
Well, and it would have been cool too for me if they would have just went completely digital, because then you got that classic look, but you got all the modern tech, and not that this doesn't have modern tech now, but it just would have felt, for me, the tack sort of feels out of place. And even the positioning of it, like the digital screen just kind of seems over here a little bit, like it's pushed out of the way, and it's not. This is just me being nitpicky, but my Jeep, I will say, is very customizable. Like, you can change all the corner stuff, a lot of features you can change. And that was something my buddy Tim Esterthal here with Pickup Truck Plus SUV Talk, who's in here somewhere, he did a review on a first edition, and privately we were texting back and forth, and I was asking him, like, hey, does it show you what gear you're in or any of this stuff? Because my Jeep does that, and it doesn't do any of that. And I was kind of like, I feel like Ford grabbed the essence of Wrangler, but they sort of lacked a few details that we might see in a couple of years. Like, oh yeah, we'll kick this in and make it a better. Or maybe Raptor brings that, and which is a great segue. Where are you at with Raptor? And I want to ask all my guests this question because I am of the position that, and this is a guy who drove the 392 Wrangler. I did a small review on that. Love that thing. But once again, as we were talking 0 to 60 on the trails, I don't know where. I think the 2.7's perfect. There's talk of maybe the 3-liter or the 3.5 for a Bronco Raptor. Where do you stand with all that?
So I think if they're going to do the Bronco Raptor with a 3.5, then they make it more like a trophy truck again, which is what the actual Raptor is.
Yes.
I don't know. Is it more just to check another box, or like I love it. I mean, if I could, maybe get one at some point, I definitely wouldn't say no, but I obviously got to see it first, but I don't know really where it fits.
Right.
Is it just to say, hey, I have all this horsepower, under my foot? But like I said, if you're trailing and stuff like that, do you really need 0 to 60, or do you really even need to go 60 miles an hour ever?
Yeah.
I think it's going to obviously fit into some sort of a category. It's just a matter of what that category is. But it's also like the other models that they're talking about creating, like the one with the snorkel, and like these are things that you can just go buy
the Everglades,
and make yourself. Yeah. Like, I don't know why that's a model.
Well, and there's been some spy photos of the Everglades out touring around, and they're like, oh, we're putting a winch on it and a snorkel. And the only thing you obviously see what it is in the spy picture, even though it's badged up, but it's the same winch that they've been trying to sell everybody. I'm like, with the winch plate sticking out, I'm like, wow, that's real exciting. And, they want $3,500 for that with a winch. What are they going to charge for a snorkel? I mean, I've paid $400 for a snorkel and thought I was being ripped off from a dealership. What is that, like a $5,000 option now?
It might be, yeah. Like, they'll have but the thing is, they'll have like one thing. It won't even be useful, but it'll have one thing that sets it apart from an aftermarket snorkel that they'll just get somebody to be like, I must have it. And then they buy the Everglades.
Yeah. And, not a bad name, but they're definitely like Jeep. The Jeep somewhere in the late 90s learned real quick about when they brought, well, I guess Rubicon was 2000. I forget when the Rubicon, I think it was with the TJ. They learned real quick, oh, people like names. Like in the Rubicon, you think off-roading, you think of the Rubicon out in California. Or they tried with the Moab a little bit. It's been, jury's out on that one. But, Ford took a page out of that and was like Badlands, Black Diamond for slopes. And how are you with the names that they've chose with that? Do you associate yours being a Black Diamond with anything? Or are you just like, well, that's just what it is?
I mean, honestly, when I heard the name Black Diamond, of course, the first thing that came to my mind was like snowboarding or skiing. Yeah. And I'm like, I don't understand where the association is because it doesn't come with a ski rack. So,
well, you know what I mean? You thought it did.
Yeah, it's like difficulty. I don't know. I mean, Black Diamonds are hard. They're tough. I mean, I'm sure there's some reasoning behind it, but for me, it was like, I like the graphic on the side of the truck. So
isn't it weird how it comes down to that though? At some point, it's just like, well, I like that graphic.
Yeah. That's
like the Big Ben to me has the worst logo. I would rather there be nothing on the side than that logo for some reason. I don't know why. Yeah. And Badlands, I get it. Wild Track, I'm a little lost with that one, but yeah, it is what it is. But do you think with Raptor coming, do they do away with Wild Track?
I mean, I think it's going to hit some very similar things, right? I mean, I think there's probably a couple of trims that they might do away with or just consolidate because they got to be seeing that people are ordering this over that. And I also fear that I know someone mentioned in the comments, and I've seen it a lot, the take rate for the two-door is much lower. So, and obviously there's material cost, there's development, there's everything in between. Are they going to keep it just because it's the old school Bronco? Or are they going to, basically bend to, okay, 4-door's the top seller, so we're going to focus on that? Because I know the Raptor, you can only get it in 4. Yeah. Well, allegedly. We don't know officially.
Right. And I think the two-door has a place. Obviously, for sentimental reasons, they'll sell some of that. And, I mean, Jeep, who would have ever thought? People thought when Jeep was bringing out a 4-door, oh, that's the dumbest thing ever. Like, Jeep got so much hate for bringing out a 4-door. And, now it's the top take for the Wrangler. And I think before the 2-door would go away, I think you're going to lose the manual transmission, really, before. I hate it. And in sports cars, I love to be the shifty boy, but in off-road, I'm just like, I'm too lazy for that.
So it's funny you mentioned that because when I did the off-rodeo, I kind of tried to put myself in the mindset of if you were in a manual vehicle right now, would you be so focused on your shift points and right gear, wrong gear, this gear, that gear? Like, would it kind of take away from the experience? And also, if it's your first time on a trail, would it overshadow like trying to think of, your actual technical abilities on the trail? And I don't have the answer for that because I haven't driven one, yet.
Right.
But I just feel like coming from a manual vehicle, you do have to kind of be aware of it to some extent.
Yeah, it's sort of a second nature. You learn to throttle or to feather the clutch a little more. At first, I think it would be a little different for you because the stress of just doing some of the things you're not used to. But it becomes second nature pretty quick. I'm just like I said, I get a little lazy, and when I go to the woods or something like that, I'm not. I know there's the guys that build their trucks up on 40s and they want to go crawl the biggest rock they can find. I just usually want to get away, and I do tend to do some extreme things at times, but at some points I just want to go get in the woods and away from nature or in nature, away from the city.
Yep.
So
yeah.
So you said you were planning a camping trip. Well, obviously you didn't have your vehicle for that. That had to be a major disappointment, right?
I was, because I was actually going to a campground that I actually grew up
nice.
as a child. So it'd be cool to go back there and see it from a different perspective and honestly take my own vehicle there. And then there was some trails and things like that around the area that I had hoped to explore. But unfortunately, because it didn't come in, it wasn't in the cards.
Right. So any before it gets too cold, any more camping trips?
Probably not camping, although maybe, I'm not sure. But I am going to be going up to New Hampshire. Has some other trails, some couple off-road parks, things like that. I have one friend in particular that he's putting on an event, I think the end of next month. And, so probably do some of that and then really just try to drive as much as possible and just explore. I find myself much with like when I first got a sports car, just driving to drive.
Mm-hmm.
I find it now a little bit more liberating because I'll be like, oh, I wonder what's down this road. And it'll be like, wow, this isn't paved.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, whatever. It doesn't matter. You don't get stuck.
Yeah. What are you, I know I'm kind of all over the place, but what is your take on the Goodyear tires they put on this thing?
So because it's my first off-road vehicle, I don't have much, like I can't compare it to anything.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say road noise is not as bad as I thought it would be. It's definitely noticeable.
Yeah.
35-inch tires, I get it. The vehicle is not sound deadened. It says it has a sound deadened headliner, but that's minimal at best. You can hear the tires, especially when you're on the highway.
Right.
But they don't, like, it's not overbearing or anything like that. It has, the traction seems fine to me. Turning things like that. I don't feel like the vehicle's like floating around or anything. So I would say overall, I've been pretty impressed with them.
I did notice the vehicles feel real planted on the road. I was 70, 75 miles an hour on the highway with no roof or top on. I never felt like, man, this is swirly or I felt very comfortable. The steering's tight. And the tires, I'm not a Goodyear guy really. I'm more of a BF Goodrich guy. But I initially was like, I'm going to pull those tires off as soon as I can. And now I'm like, you know what? I'll wear those out and then we'll go from there. But do you have a brand of tire or anything that you kind of like to put on?
So I personally prefer Michelin, but I honestly don't even know if they do anything for off-road. So
they do. BF
Goodrich would be something where I'd be like, yeah,
BF Goodrich is Michigan. Yeah. Or Michelin. Yeah. And that's one reason why, because Michelin does the best sports car tires. It's like, I want the same for off-road. So modding this thing, you've done the antenna, and whether people think that's a mod or not, the antenna is ridiculously big on these things. What was the company you used for your antenna?
Craven Speed.
Craven Speed. And I assume they have more than the bullet option. They probably have all kinds of little options, right?
Yeah, so they have two. They have the stubby kind, which is essentially it's the same height. It looks like a mini antenna.
Mm-hmm.
And then they have the bullet design, which is what it is.
Right. What's the next kind of thing? Did you do any of the I'm assuming you got your Ford points now, so you have a little bit of credit with Ford. Any of their aftermarket stuff that you're looking at?
Yeah, so actually, so things I have on hand that I need to install so far is the console vault for the center console. I actually ordered that in the summer, which was, my wife thought I was insane. She's like, you don't even own the vehicle, and you're ordering parts for a vehicle you don't own. Like, I had the door bags before I even had a build date, because I'm like, well, at some point, I'm going to need to put these doors in a bag. And I figured that once they start, shipping and becoming available, the aftermarket parts would not be available, and the accessories and things like that. So I jumped on it. Outside of that, I have the door sills because the paint is going to get just destroyed coming in and out of the vehicle, especially getting into the back seat. So that seemed like a no-brainer to me. And then I have the hood struts. Mm-hmm. Because this is the first vehicle I've owned that actually has I don't know what it's actually called, but
the kickstand or whatever.
The kickstand, yeah. And I'm almost like, I'm going to open up this one day, and I'm gonna just think that it has hood struts, and I'm gonna drop it.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, it's and it's an aluminum hood, right? So it's fairly light, if I remember right.
It is very light. And I mean, and like I said, the air quotes kickstand is easy enough to use. It's not like it's a deal breaker.
Yeah.
But I like to modify things, and it's just what it comes down to. I hope to get into bigger things like lights and things like that. I'm actually really waiting for Baja Designs to get their kits available, because right now they're just pre-orders.
Yeah.
And I kind of wanted to jump on a pre-order, but I feel like, 2 weeks might become 2 months, and have all that money tied up and no product.
Yeah, I will say this: Baja Designs is a pretty reputable company, so anything that they do quality products, which in light bars and stuff, that's one thing you have to look for is quality, because you can get you're like, oh man, this light bar is $40 on eBay. and it's LED just like the others. And then 2 weeks later, you look and it's just condensation all through it because the cables is where the water will leak in. They'll come through the back of the cable, but them and Rigid and a few other companies, man, I hate to say it because light bars are expensive to these guys, but I think you do get what you pay for with those guys.
Yeah. I also like that I've noticed a couple people like for the fog light housings, you have trail lights and things like that. There's some that just have a plate and the plate, the lights mount to the plate.
Mm-hmm.
But what I like about Baja is they have like that pod design where it looks like the lights are actually integrated into the bumper. Like it came like that from the factory.
Yeah. No, they've done a really good job with that. And the price is the only thing I have with that. It's fairly expensive. But like I said,
I never thought I'd spend, when I pulled the trigger on, I never thought I'd spend upwards of $3,000 on outdoor lighting. It's a little insane.
Right. If you go to Home Depot and you're like, look at all the lighting I could get for this amount of money. And no, it's just a pair of lights on my truck. But it's also a kind of a built-in kind of audience that, they have what you want kind of thing.
Yeah.
So did you get the sound deadening on your hardtop?
I did, yes.
All of it?
Yes.
Because I asked that because I've seen some that got one panel and missing the rest.
I've seen like the one panels. I saw one guy that like a corner was already peeling before he'd even looked at the vehicle for more than a minute. I did notice right away. I mean, it might just be the way it's designed, but if you rub your hand on it, it essentially will snow particles.
Yeah, the glue. Yeah.
If you're OCD about something like that, maybe vacuum it and not have to deal with that.
Right. Yeah, but it does help. I will say I wrote in some that didn't have it. When I did the Celebration East they did in Tennessee, they had prototype panels on and they didn't have it. And of course, it's a convertible style vehicle, so you're going to hear a little bit of wind noise. I know I've heard some people kind of fussing and kind of bitching a little bit like, oh man, I can hear wind coming through the panel or whatever. And you're like, look, man, it's a Lego. You're riding around in a Lego. It's not the solid roof that was welded to the rest of the chassis. And I know that was part of the video that you did. You were like, hey man, yeah, you can hear a little bit here and there. But it is basically a convertible vehicle and you just kind of roll with the punches, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you're going into this thinking you're going to get a luxury, interior where you're not going to hear the outside and it's going to be this plush, sound experience, it's not.
Yeah.
And I think that comes down to, setting expectations before you take delivery. Maybe take one for a road test once they're available. I mean, actually, mannequins are available, so go take one for a road test.
Yep.
And be like, wow, having a conversation on a cell phone might be kind of difficult here because there is road noise.
Yes.
But at the same time, you are buying an off-road vehicle. It's not meant to just sit in traffic and ride on the highway, although it can do it.
Yeah. And if you want something like that, go look at the Toyota 4Runner. If you need a solid roof, I mean, you're buying this because the roof comes off. But so did you inspect your roof? Because they did have all the problems, and I know you got the roof 2.0, but did you ever find any problems with it?
So I haven't seen any problems. I did see one part where there's like a mark. I don't even know what it possibly could be. It's a slightly darker color. It looks like it might be like a surface scratch or something.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not too picky about it, only because it's going to be coming off the vehicle and I'm going to scratch it.
Yeah.
Obviously I prefer to put the first scratch on it.
Of course.
Just personal preference. But as far as the actual construction, I did walk around it when I ended up, taking delivery, or we're not even so much taking delivery, but seeing it for the first time, and looked at the corners and got inside and made sure that it had the sound deadening headliner. And I kind of had like a checklist, like when you buy a house, right? And you have like your walkthrough. Yep. I kind of had that for the Bronco. Like, does it have the things I ordered? Because I know people are saying like sometimes the seats didn't come with the Bronco emblem on it.
Yeah.
And that was rare, but it did happen. And I also had in the back of my mind, like, if something's wrong, are you going to take it as is because you get one, or are you going to nitpick every little thing?
Well, and, I think certain vehicles like this, we nitpick everything. For one, we're all invested in this thing a little more than the average person is. Like, we've all waited for so long. We were all inspired by that video to buy one. And, a lot of us, if you're in here, you're probably on a forum or something, or in a Facebook group that kind of everybody, there's more negative than there is positive. And that's just how it is in life. People always fuss before they praise. And yeah, you're kind of mentally beat up on this thing by the time you take delivery of is it gonna make this noise? Is now you're hearing, oh well, the 2.7's just blowing up like crazy, and I'm like, I've seen 2 of those, and I don't think that's like crazy, but so yeah, are you a little gun shy of this thing?
I mean, to some extent, I am, right? Because I know it's a first-year vehicle, right? I know it's going to have quirks and it's going to have little things. But if the engine's going to blow up, like, that's a deal breaker for me, right? Like,
Right?
just because it's like, I can't just run up to the store and buy a new one of those.
Yeah, yeah,
Or have them swap it out under warranty. Like, it's going to be something where it's going to make it, I can't use the vehicle. Whereas if it's something else, like, the headliner gets a little loose, I'll probably just fix it.
yeah.
Or I'll first bring it to the dealer to see if it's a simple fix, but if they say it's, oh, we have to take your vehicle because of warranty related issues and now you're not going to have it for 3 months.
Yeah.
Like, I'll deal with the curled hair, headliner. I'll be
Oh
upset
yeah.
about it, but I'll deal with it.
Oh, my buddy with Lifestyle, man, he picked his Bronco up and there was a nick on the bumper, and he honestly, he was replacing them anyways, but the dealership made a big deal about it, as they should. They shouldn't accept vehicles that are, but. So they had his vehicle for a week to fix the bumper, and something about the part came in damaged. They end up breaking something off of his bumper to get it off because it is a first year vehicle. For dealerships, there's bulletins and PDFs how to do this stuff, but till you do it the first time, there's always that, you probably break something. But yeah, and he said it's been an ordeal for him to get a bumper that he doesn't even want,
Yeah.
So you had, and speaking of that, you have the heavy duty bumper.
Yes.
And I'm gonna. I did a video early on in this channel's life of saying there was too many bolts, too many Bronco bolts. Like they're super proud of those Bronco bolts on that bumper, and I got a lot of hate for that. But I want to ask, now that Ford said in 22, the standard is the heavy duty bumper and not this bumper that they have now. Would you have accepted the newer or the what they call standard now, or
Yeah, I don't see myself attaching so many accessories that I need all those bolts. I mean, it kind of has like an industrial design vibe, but to me it does. It looks like, like when you see a wide body car that just has rivets popped on the side of it.
Yeah.
It's just, to me, it's not a great look.
Yeah.
Is it something that I would have gone with the standard bumper, the standard of 2021? Plastic and stuff? No, I wouldn't. I knew that I wanted the metal bumper and I wanted the metal skid plate.
Right.
Because I knew that I would do something similar to the Pickens family did, and the first time you hit the plastic, it's gonna crack, right?
Yeah.
So you have to replace it.
Yeah.
And it's just, I figured, hey, why not just get the metal one and off I go. But yeah, if they would have offered it with less Bronco bolts, I would have taken it.
Right. I really was amazed. Like I took a lot of heat on that video. And I'll go back and look at it every once in a while and be like, man, these people had never even seen one in person, because I compared it. I don't know if you've seen the Rubicon bumper that they do with the detachable corners and all that. There's some bolts in it, but it's not like you were saying. It was like Ford was proud of how many attachments can we get people to, how many LED lights. It's a Christmas tree suddenly, and we got to put as many lights as possible in this thing. But I've been looking at the capable bumper, as they call it, and I'm like, I probably would have saved my $600 and just used that bumper.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you have to see it in person, but I mean, I honestly, I think I probably would have been the same, because like I said, I'm not going to attach 1,000 accessories to this thing. And I do find it kind of comical that in other parts of the vehicle, they have to put accessory ready. Like they have to put arrows and things like that. I think it's neat because it kind of introduces you to the world of aftermarket.
Mm-hmm.
But I also kind of wonder, are they overplaying the, Bronco fans aren't as savvy as Jeep fans kind of thing, where like you have to be told what you're supposed to do here.
Right. Yeah, that is a good question. But I do like that they put a lot of thought into like the mirrors. Of course, from day one, I liked how the mirrors were part of the body, not the doors. But I do like how they were smart enough to go, oh man, they paid attention to Overland crowd of attaching lights everywhere. And they were smart about it. Like, hey man, let's, it's probably was honestly just a way to bolt the mirror down. And they were like, oh man, we can say we did this on purpose, and it works out great.
Yeah, Bronco bolts for everybody, for everywhere.
And there was a lot of high res pictures of those bolts too early on. I was like, wow, it's a bolt, man. Yeah, they did it on the old Jeeps when they were building those, but okay.
I wanted to like look it up and see if it's like a possibly different thread that they actually have a patent on that bolt.
Right.
I don't know if they do, but I almost wonder because they seem to run a lot of information about it.
Right, or suddenly Jeep now has a little Jeep stamped in every bolt. Now that's the next Easter egg thing, which drives me crazy. I hate Easter eggs in vehicles. I think it's silly, and I'm probably in my crowd here about to get a lot of heat for this. But yes, it's fun for a minute. But I was looking at my Jeep the other day, and I was like, "Holy cow, man! Could they put more Jeep logos all over the weirdest places?" And Nissan did it with their Titan. When they refreshed the Titan, there's T's everywhere. I'm like, I'm not looking at my vehicle in that much detail. I mean, if you stop at a store and don't turn back and look at your vehicle, yeah, like there's a love to a vehicle, but I don't need reminders that it's a Ford everywhere. Have you looked and found any weird Easter eggs?
I mean, so that's the thing that I hate about social media is by the time I took delivery of it, I felt like I already had a map of every single Easter egg that exists on the vehicle, right? Because it was like, oh, it has this, it has that, it has the obviously the homage under the gas cap, or the gas door. It has the coordinates up on the rail and all these different things. It has little Broncos on all the pictures of when a vehicle needs to be depicted. So it was like once I had it, I was like, oh, there it is. Yep, there's that one. Oh, there's this one. The one thing I haven't found, and maybe I just don't know where it is there is no bottle opener in the back of the vehicle.
Oh, it's supposed to be in the post that comes down. It's a little hole in the side of it.
Okay, I'll have to look again because I've seen photos of it from the 4-door soft top or just a soft top in general.
Yeah.
But I just didn't see it, and honestly, I wasn't looking for it extensively. But
I think that's one of the sillier ones because who opens bottles anymore? For one thing, I know that was a big part of the launch. Was like, oh, and it's got even the Bronco Sport. We put a bottle opener here, and I'm like, well, for one, if you're out camping, the last thing you want to deal with is glass. Especially if you have kids, because inevitably your kid is going to break the bottle, and then you got more danger. So I guess if it's a throwback vehicle from the '60s, and they're like, well, yeah, people want to open bottles.
I mean, yeah, I think some of it does come down to, like you said, like social media and marketing. Like they want to have those cool little things. Like I know, I would love to hear from somebody that has the 4-door. Have you ever stored the doors in the back of your vehicle? Because when it comes down to it, once you do that, you can't even put a duffel bag.
Yeah.
Like I don't really understand the appeal other than we can do it and Jeep can't.
Yes. Yeah, I've told my wife that one time we were talking about that. I was like, I don't know that I'm going out to my local off-road park and suddenly like, you know what? I'm going up this. Wait, let's put the doors in the back. Let's take the doors off because they're going to get beat up. You're not. Yeah. They do sandwich together, but inevitably they're going to bounce around and then suddenly you got dents all through your doors. But you're right. That's a total PR. Like, definitely PR was like with this vehicle. Like, how many things? I guarantee you, like the bottle opener was probably just a hole for manufacturing, and they're like, we can call that a bottle opener. They'll love
it. We can put a little ridge on it. It opened a bottle.
Right. And is
the hole big enough that the cap can fall, the bottle top can fall in? I
was about to say that. Suddenly they got rattling in the sport bar because there's so many bottle caps in there. And guys, once again, these are my opinions. I see you in the chat. You're getting a little crazy. But yeah, they're just my opinions.
I did want to answer a couple quick questions that I've seen kind of flown by a couple times.
Yeah, go for it.
So one of them, the Bronco Off-Rodeo, was absolutely amazing. I've only seen New Hampshire, so I don't know the others. But if you are in the area, definitely sign up. I know they don't have it too much longer in New Hampshire because it becomes ski season. Mm-hmm. And I think actually maybe the end of this month, the end of next month, it stops. So not too much, more time on the clock there. But definitely do it. And there was talk that they might pick it back up in the spring, but no official word yet. So yeah, definitely do that if you can. And yes, I did actually get a refund from Off-Rodeo for my owner deposit for going on the Off-Rodeo once my vehicle was delivered. I think it was like 3 or 4 days after the vehicle came home.
Yeah, that was a weird one too. Was Ford was like, oh, it's going to be free when you do this, and then nothing's free.
No.
And I mean, people bought into it, and then I'd seen once again Ford's way of communicating doesn't always seems to be the nicest way or the wisest way to its customers, and people were mad about that for a while. What do you mean I got to put a deposit down and this and that?
Yeah, there's a deposit, and then there was the owner's fee, which or the registration fee, which is non-refundable, and then if you get the insurance, that's not refundable either, of course. And then the one was weird to me was bring a guest. It's well, I think it was $395.
Yes.
And I'm like, what? Like, okay, they got a little trail guide and a Yeti water bottle. That did not cost $395.
Right.
They're just a guest of mine. They're not taking their own vehicle. They have to be in my vehicle, so they're not taking up a spot.
Yeah.
It just seemed kind of weird that, like, and then if you bring another guest, oh, now it's $295. It's like, $700 to go drive the Bronco for a day.
Exactly. And I think on one of my live streams I kind of fussed about that. I was like, it's brilliant for Ford. Wow, people can't get this and they're going to pay us now even more to drive it.
Yeah.
Great. But I do think especially like in your case, I think the off-roadeo it's a good move. Jeep's done some things like this in the past where they have their Jeep schools and stuff. I do hope that they pick it up. I know in your area they had such a hard time finding a place, or they found a place and the town didn't want them in there.
Yep, Vermont. So, yep, it was supposed to be in Vermont. They'd already designed the trails. They'd already got the staff in place, like what they were going to be doing. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, the town was like, wait, we don't want wheelers up here because once the event ends, they're never going to leave. They're always going to come back and they're going to tear it up.
Yeah.
And at that point, it was like they had put so much money and time into it that it almost became like, Northeast will happen, but kind of like, pending, coming soon kind of deal. Like we have no idea when it's going to happen. And then New Hampshire rose to the challenge and was like, hey, have it here.
Yeah. I was surprised how late in the game they did those too. Because it was August, I think, when they got that one open, maybe.
So I think the final three opened the same day or the same week.
Yeah, so obviously the Texas one can keep going and Nevada can keep going, but I guess Moab does get a little cold in the winter. Was any of the other ones ever an option for you?
So when I had no idea what was going to be happening for Northeast, like that was a given because I could most likely drive to it.
Yeah.
I was thinking, where do I want to go? And I was kind of on Texas. I actually never been to Texas, so I thought that'd be kind of cool. Visit Texas, be interesting. I've been to Nevada a lot, so I've thought, and I've been to I've been to the Red Rock canyons and stuff like that. I didn't really know at the time where they were going to do it,
right?
But I had a feeling that's kind of where it was going to be. So it was really between those two. Moab looks beautiful. I just personally didn't have any interest. I mean, if I was able to, I'd go to all four of them because I know you're going to get a different experience at every single one.
Right. Yeah, and if it was a little cheaper, then you could actually go to all four of them. And maybe down the road it gets a little cheaper.
I think, yeah, I mean, I'm wondering if at some point, once they've kind of met demand as far as like the reservation, the first run of reservations and such, will they open it up to the general public? Because, I'm on the fence wanting to buy a Bronco. I can say spend $400 and take one for a day. It's like renting one on Turo, except that I can bring it up into an actual course and learn about the vehicle from experts.
Right.
I think a lot of people would do that just to kind of see. Like I know Porsche has that. You can do an experience day where you take the car all weekend and you drive it on a track with an instructor.
And BMW I know does that. And,
yep.
Yeah. And speaking of that, as I know it's getting late for you, and I do appreciate your time.
Fine.
What else is in your garage? I think that people here would like to know about, because for one, I got to interrupt. Guys, I got 99 likes and we've had up to it just dropped the numbers keep rising and falling, but smash the like button just helps show the love, to the channel a little bit. But what else is in Matt? What is in your garage? Because I got a feeling it's interesting.
So I don't have a ton of stuff, but I do have a 981 Porsche GT4.
Nice.
That is my weekend toy / track car.
Right.
And then I recently picked up a Ducati street bike, which I've always kind of ridden, but it was the first time that I went with an Italian street bike. So I, enjoying that on the road and, thinking possibility I might take it to the track next year.
The bike. Wow.
Yeah.
Have you ever done the Tail of the Dragon there in?
I have not. No, that it's funny you mention that because I'm actually in a group chat with some car friends and they're talking about possibly doing something next year, Tail of the Dragon. And I have some friends that have gone to it in the past. It's always been something I wanted to do. But it's just never really kind of come to fruition.
And if you do that, it's close but not close, look up the Devil's Triangle. It's kind of closer to East Knoxville a little bit, but it is it's a fun road too. It's a shorter or smaller version of the Dragon, but well worth it, man. You'll see Lamborghinis and just everybody riding these things. It's great. It's a great time. But so Ducati, man, what's that like?
So it is a track bike that has blinkers and a license plate. I mean, it's the only way I can explain it because it has an insane amount of horsepower for the size of it. I mean, obviously it's just a motorcycle, but it's a 950cc bike. It has an aggressive leaning position. The windshield is cosmetic at best because it doesn't stop anything. But it's just such a joy it's really just such a joy to ride. For me, motorcycles are therapy. And if I'm having a rough day or stressed out at work or what have you, hop on the bike, take it off into, back roads, and it literally just all washes away.
Yeah. And what about the car?
So the car it's actually kind of funny. I had an M3 prior to it, and I went to track days, autocrosses, charity rallies, things like that. That was actually a lot of my channel, was going to like track days and charity rallies and things of that nature, just to help people and just all that sort of stuff. I really enjoyed doing that.
Yeah.
And I met a lot of people that are in the car world, and an opportunity arose where the car was starting to get a little bit older, and I wanted to get something different. I had driven Porsches on the track through a Porsche track day. Like, they actually brought them and let you drive them. And I actually had the opportunity to work with Porsche as a app developer on a project a few years back. So I kind of always loved the brand. And I decided that I was going to buy one. And I ended up buying it in Colorado, flying out with my son, and driving it home to Boston.
Oh, wow. What an experience.
So yeah, it was a fun trip. We did it over 3 days. It was a ton of driving, but it was honestly the only way that I could enjoy the vehicle, and being able to do it with my son. That was in and of itself awesome.
I will say, so I bought a G35 been many years ago, but I didn't. It was only 4 hours away from me. But I will say, I drove from Nashville to Memphis, which is about 4 hours, and picking a car up there, and like you said, driving for a period of time like that, you can go buy a car at a dealership and you're home in 20 minutes or whatever. And you love the car, but when you're kind of stuck to enjoy that, like, it was smiles all the way home for me. Like, just, it was the car I wanted at the time. And yeah, so I imagine for you, that was a blast.
I mean, so for me, I kind of always had in the back of my mind that I wanted to buy a car in California, drive it on the Pacific Coast Highway, like just the whole cliche, like just do everything car related.
Yeah.
And then I was like, well, I can't find one in California, so that's not going to happen. But I found in Colorado, and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do the fly out, bring it home. It'll be a fun road trip. Never done it before. The furthest I ever bought a vehicle was like, say 50 miles away. And I'm not going to trailer it home. As exciting as that would be to see the truck show up and the car comes off of it, all seen those videos, all seen those photos. I was like, I want to go grab it and just drive it home.
Yeah. Well, and I seen a lot of people with Bronco that would seem like them. They bought from Granger, whoever they were buying from. And, I'd talked to my wife about it, and I was like, I can't believe people do that. And she was like, no, that would be kind of fun, that you have to road trip home in this vehicle that you just flew out to buy or whatever. So
I would have paid extra if I could have flown to Detroit and grabbed the vehicle and driven it home. I would have.
Yeah.
Because I think it would just have been interesting. Like, I know that near the plant, there's like a diner that's Ford themed, and there's all sorts of things there. There's all sorts of history, and I think that in of itself would be cool to see one day. But it just would have been so cool to, like, maybe they put it under that, like, that kind of that canopy that they have outside of the plant, and then that's where you pick up your Bronco and like kind of drive off with it. Of course you'd have to have purchased it before, but yeah, I think that would have been a cool thing. I don't think a lot of American car companies do it. I know Corvette does. You can pick it up at the museum as an option.
Right. And it's a very European thing too. Like, a lot, like, and I know, like, in Australia, you order your vehicle and then you've got to go pick it up some ways. You don't, like the M stuff from BMW, like, you have the option of picking it up at the plant and they roll it out, and they have a kind of a concierge service that walks you around the vehicle. They really, but they ought to, I guess. You start paying those kind of prices for a vehicle. But no, I definitely think. But I also think that the dealership trend is dying. I think Ford. I think Tesla is proving a point that people will buy a vehicle and have it delivered right to their house and be just as happy as you were dealing with, a dealership. In many ways, if you're financing a vehicle, the only thing you have to negotiate anymore is maybe a couple percentage points based on your credit. And that's really the only negotiating you have. So I think in 20 years that some of the big three start doing that.
I agree with you. I would counter that I think it might be sooner. And the reason I think it might be sooner is because Ford's kind of already had some words and such about doing the direct-to-consumer model, making so you don't even go to a dealership anymore. And, I mean, it's a small piece, but quite honestly, seeing what they're doing with, like, this ADM stuff, Ford themselves doesn't want that because they don't make any more money.
Right.
They just have angry customers. So if they can remove that, like Tesla, you do not negotiate on a Tesla. You pay what it is.
Yeah, you go to the kiosk.
You kind of have some room.
Yeah.
But Elon sets the price, and that's what you pay.
Right. And, and it is a very American thing anyways to try to negotiate the price on a vehicle anyways. Everywhere else, you just pay what they ask, and that's the way it is. But like I was saying, I think Tesla proved the point that people will buy it from a kiosk. Yeah, you need some service centers. And I think really I think you would thin a lot of dealerships out, but I think ultimately every town would kind of have a hub for service, and that's about it. Or it's a hub to basically they drop your vehicle off there and you have the concierge service kind of walk around, show the features, and then you leave.
Yep.
But in financing, like Ford, like all major brands, they all have their own financing anyways. So it would be in their best interest to want you to finance the car through them anyways.
And it was funny when I went through that process. Traditionally when you buy a vehicle, they try to upsell you on everything.
Yes.
I think it's the financial advisor. I don't know what he's actually called, but that guy basically was talking to me, and he's like, "I'm gonna be honest with you. I can't sell you anything because I have no accessories. I have no upsells.
Yeah.
Like I could give you an extended warranty. Do you want that? Because that's literally the only thing that I could sell you right now."
Yeah.
And I kind of enjoyed the honesty, but it was also kind of interesting because like maybe that's why they're doing the ADM, because there's no other way for them to upsell you on it at the moment, right?
Yeah.
Things will come, but for right now, they're kind of stuck at MSRP or above.
Yeah, I know my dealership. I put it in Bronco 6G. I was asking in the local group, the local Tennessee group. I was asking, does anybody bought from where I'm buying mine? And I said, hey, did they stick to MSRP? And a guy said, yeah, I picked mine up 10 days ago, and they stuck to MSRP. He said the only thing they did do is they added $1,000 of BS stuff that, they don't do, nitrogen in the tires or whatever. And speaking of that, so my Jeep, I ordered my Jeep. Here's the window sticker for my Jeep. And let's see. $47,000 or whatever it came out to be for my Jeep. And I found it before the dealership knew they were getting it. And I plucked it off the truck. It went right through inspection. I said, pull it out front and I'm coming to buy it. And the guy's like, you don't want to drive it? I was like, no, I'm buying it for my channel. I don't care. I hope it drives bad, really. Like, it's content. And so they had the window sticker and all that stuff sticking in the deal. So literally, they pulled it off the truck, checked a couple bolts, which is about all they do in inspections, and they rolled it out. So this was sitting next to it. And this is granted, this is before like the real chip. I bought this in May. So it shows MSRP right there, $47,000. But then for $998.98 is the all-terrain package, which is kind of weird. Kind of cool. It's being all-terrain nation. But the all-terrain package includes nitrogen in your tires, and that's it. So they're trying to say for $1,000 they had to put nitrogen in the tires, which is hilarious to me because I think if a lawyer ever got a hold of them and had that tire tested for nitrogen, there'd be a lawsuit there because I guarantee you they put a green cap on all the tires like they did something. But But getting to the point was my dealership I'm buying my Bronco from, they have some goofy package like that. And the guy was like, I basically had to pay that. They weren't going to negotiate on it. And I was like, I'll do that. If that's the only kind of up charge I have to do, I'll live with it. But I will say too, though, dealers are hurting like crazy right now. Like my dealerships have nothing on them. They got some used cars, but if you look at the price of the used cars right now, it's ridiculous. And have you had anybody try to buy your Bronco, or did they try to buy it, the dealership try to buy it out from under you?
So the dealership didn't. One of the guys said, the workers there actually said that he had basically my build on order. And I was kind of waiting for like the pause and then the, can I buy it from you kind of situation. It didn't happen. I, however, as a result of being on, I think it's the Bronco 6X Facebook group, which is a great group. It's a bunch of great information, lots of drama too.
Oh yeah, it's great.
I have had more than a couple people message me, like it goes to filtered, but I see it eventually.
Yeah.
And it's like, hey, I saw you got a Bronco. I'm willing to pay over MSRP. Name your price. And I'm like, okay, like you're gonna stay hidden because I'm not having this conversation. But at the end of the day, like I love cars. I will never pay over MSRP unless there comes a day when I can buy like a one of one something.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I just must have it, and this is how I get it.
Yeah.
But I love the Bronco. I'm here talking about it for hours, but at the same time, it's a Bronco, right? Like it's not a one of one, one of 10, never going to be seen car, vehicle, truck, bus, whatever it happens to be. You got to kind of put in perspective that you're paying over sticker. That's a tax on the impatient.
Mm-hmm. I hate to say this, Ben, and I'm not trying to get you to throw a price out, but would somebody be stupid enough to throw you a price and you'd be like, all right, done? And I'm not asking for a price. I'm just saying.
No. I mean, yes, everything has. So I was taught at a very early age that everything's for sale.
Yes.
All right. And the reason for that is because it's just stuff. And at the end of the day, if I can sell it for more than I bought it for, well, then I've made a profit. I have zero intention of doing it. I've already seen with like the GT4, I could actually sell it for more than I bought it just because the car market right now is insane.
Right.
I have zero desire to do it. It's not like I'm swimming in money or anything. It's nothing like that at all. It just kind of comes down to I would miss it more than the little profit that I would make. And quite honestly, I don't know what I'd buy after it.
I know for me, because mine's 54,000 plus tax or whatever it's going to be. I would say if somebody did offer me about 80 grand, it would be hard to turn that down because I could save that money, try to get a 22, and the damn thing's near paid off. You know, there is a practical side to me, though. You know, I want it for my channel, you know, much like you did. But like you said, everything has a price, and I am amazed in these groups. People, like a dealer will post something up, and you see people. There's a lot of hate when the dealers do it, and justifiable in some cases, because I do think sometimes these guys come off a little douchey when they post stuff in there. But you know, you see the individual that bought it, and part of me is like, hey man, they should be able to. If somebody's dumb enough to pay $100,000 for a first edition, more power to you, man, because in 5 years that you've lost so much money. I don't see them holding value. Any of these Broncos, I just don't see them holding, you know, Jeeps hold value. Okay. But these aren't investments.
I mean, I think that, it's weird for me because if I am a person that has 100 grand to go buy something that actually only costs 60 ounce, what is it, like 65 or something like that? I actually don't know how much the first edition cost, but I think it was somewhere around there. Yeah. And I can pay 100 grand. I clearly have to bring cash to the table because no financing company is gonna give me that deal.
Yeah.
And I feel like at that point, like you would have an understanding of you're buying a depreciating asset that is never going to be worth what you paid for it the second you take ownership.
Right.
You know, so do I really need it that bad? And I honestly, I don't know. I don't have the answer to that question because, like I said, I wouldn't pay over, but I know there's a ton of people that are.
Right.
And I almost wonder, like you said, like, you know, is it I must have it now and I'll kind of just figure it out later.
Yeah.
But I do want to ask them how they're buying it because, like I said, you just cannot get financing for that. I think you can only go over, like 110 or 115%.
Yeah.
I don't know how you're going for a $60,000 vehicle to 100 grand. Like, you got to bring a lot of cash to the table.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you see these big Bens going for $60,000. You're like, guys, that's a $35,000 vehicle, man. Like, and the Big Ben people there, I will say there's a ton of people that, you know, dealers were like, oh, you know, we had these customers backing out. And you're like, stop lying. Ford gave you the ability to buy the Big Ben because guess what? Nobody was buying that model. It for whatever reason, the base appealed to people, and then the Black Diamond and so on. They didn't, for whatever reason, the Big Ben doesn't make any sense. So they're like, okay, we need so many of these out. Dealers here will give you a chance to buy them. And then these people that didn't want to wait, and there's so many, and there's a lot of, you know, wannabe YouTubers out there that rushed out to overpay for one of those things so they could be the first to put tires on it or something. And it strikes me funny because in a year, there's going to be so many Big Bens where people are so upside down in these things, like so upside down in them. And I think in 2 years that model's gone anyways. I just don't think Ford continues to build that. And I don't know. I guess you get what you deserve with that one.
Yeah, I mean, I think you kind of hit it where, like, you know, if you're a influencer, be it real or in your head, and you think that like that's the vehicle you need, so you'll pay over because you'll make it back on your brand deals and all that stuff, then I guess at that point it's just a business decision.
Mm-hmm.
But the sad reality is a lot of people are just entertained by it. They love the vehicle. They must have it because they either got screwed over by their dealer or whatever it happens to be.
Yeah.
And yeah, like you said, they're just going to be upside down, and the newness is going to wear off, right? Like I've had it now a couple of weeks, and it's still a super cool vehicle. I absolutely love it. But it's not as cool as the day that I saw it when I went to the dealership to buy it.
Yeah. Yeah. At
It's
some
just
point,
the reality.
yeah, at some point they, you know, it's just practical. It's transportation. Howbeit that it's transportation, you can pull the doors off and have a little fun that way. So guys, go over to Coderman here, and it's is it Coderman.com on Instagram?
Instagram, yeah.
Go show Matt some love there. And he's got a lot of cool content. He's got a cool two-door, which seems to be a super rare thing. Kind of one last thing, man. We were talking about the YouTubers and stuff. There was a few that million plus sub channels that were kind of begging Ford for their Bronco to get their Broncos early. And I will say this, I commend Ford for not bowing down to those people. Like there's the Stradman and Emily or Amelia, whatever her name is, which I watch their channels and I think it's great. But there was one time where she was begging Ford on her own channel, hey, hook me up. And you're like, and GM definitely hooked some of these people up with the vets. And I was so happy that they've made those people wait like everybody else. Or, hey, you want it? Go pay markup. Go buy that $60,000, Bronco, and so be it. So, Matt, any final words, buddy?
I really no final words. If anybody has any questions that I can answer on, the two-door or my experience or the off-road or anything like that, keep the conversation going a couple minutes. And if you already asked a question and we didn't see it, ask it again, because the chat keeps rolling. They have their own little conversation.
I've told you before we started, I was like, this is like a side channel over here. They just do their own thing. And every once in a while you'll get a cool question out of it, but they, my army there, they seem to, either keep everybody in line. Peugeot, don't talk about Light Bright. Come on, man. That's the bane of my I mean, I hate that. They're probably super nice people, but I don't go off-roading in a tennis skirt either. So
I don't, as much as I hate even saying it out loud, but as much as I am a YouTuber by the definition, I try very hard not to be the cliche YouTuber, like, oh, I broke, my Bronco, or, let me do this because it's going to be, I don't know, it's going to be something that people are going to think it's clickbait and they're going to click on it. And here it is. I just try to create honest content, answer questions, and just have fun with it.
Yeah, no, definitely. There was one, I don't know if you saw it going around on Bronco 6G last week, where this guy was out in Moab and he's like, I broke my Bronco. And it was such a bad clickbait. And I will say this, there's a fine line of clickbait and getting people to your channel to make them want to go at, you ask the question in the title, hoping somebody clicks the thing and then they watch your video. But this guy was being ate alive because he didn't break. I watched the whole video. And as a YouTuber, I try not to comment too much on this stuff because I don't want to be a douchebag and be like, like I'm better than anybody else. Because by no means am I, I don't even have a Bronco right now, so I can't say anything to the way they operate. But this guy was getting so much like just beat up over his title, and he ended up changing it on the Bronco 6G to what was it? I broke my Bronco in, so he added into it, and I was just like, man, welcome to the world, buddy. I hope you got thick skin because they'll eat you alive on that stuff. So.
Yeah, I saw one. I forget. I don't know who it was, but they posted saying, is my Bronco broken now? And it was because at one time they had switched goat modes, and it got really confused and just started throwing warnings.
Was that the one? Oh, that was the cyber orange one. The guy got it early, I think.
4-door, yep.
Yeah, and he got a lot of subscribers and a lot of interest real quick. And yeah, it was just okay content. I haven't watched his channel since, but I remember that one.
It was funny because I kind of had the same thing, and then I kind of watched more of it. Now he's been doing a lot of modifications. I think actually his Bronco's going to SEMA, because he's done a lot of stuff to it now.
Yeah.
But it was just like that was the line of it, not really clickbait, but it kind of is because it's not broken. You literally just had to shut it off and turn it back on again.
Yeah.
It just got confused because the sand, which was funny in and of itself, that sand confused the computer, but.
Well, I know there was there's been a few issues of dirt getting around the ABS wires and causing it to kind of freak out just a little bit. And I know my buddy had his with Lifestyle. His did it, and I've seen a few reports of people's of doing it. Where I don't know if it's dirt or sand or something getting in between the cables or something, causing them to kind of wig out just a little bit.
No, that could be.
Hey man, these modern vehicles are finicky, and they're not manual transfer case 5 speeds anymore. With the only electronics is some computer to tell the fuel injection to do anything. It's they're computers on wheels anymore. So you got to expect this stuff. Matt, I greatly appreciate your time tonight, man. I know for you being on the East Coast, this is super late. So I think my audience would all agree. We appreciate you staying up real late for us tonight.
Appreciate it. One question here I do see.
Oh, go ahead.
The others, but the tube steps. So I don't know specifically what that is, but that kind of like the running boards.
The rock sliders.
Rails.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have the rock rails rock sliders because of the Black Diamond, and I do like those. I want to keep those. So I think it's rock slider or rock rail. I can't remember the name of the company. They do Jeeps. They actually have a powered step.
Oh, okay.
So it's a rock rail, and then when you open the door, there's a sensor that'll actually bring down a step. That's what I'll probably end up going with.
Okay, yeah. TC Customs did a video. Mitchell over there did a video on that where they installed those. Super nice, big, kind of bulky, but I definitely like to have protection and a step that comes down. Probably with little kids as well would be nice.
Yeah, because right now I like for the twins I have to lift them up, but as they get older. Like they're gonna get that level where they can't quite get in themselves, but they're too heavy for me to lift them up every day. Yes. I think that will.
I know Lifestyle Off-Road is developing an attachment for those too, where you can bolt on some side steps to those rock rails. So those are in the pipe works. Hopefully by Black Friday, hopefully they have those. But any other questions, man? I see they're talking about Scotty now, which is they know I have no love for Scotty. I did a Scotty video on my Nissan channel that I constantly get Scotty people attacking me on. It's hilarious, man, how they defend that guy.
I mean, he's has such a huge following,
and you just got to do this a lot. And he
does. There isn't a singular formula to be successful on YouTube. But that being said, there is one surefire way, and that's to act like a goof. Yes. It just really comes down to that, right? Because people resonate with that, and they make fun of you. But making fun of you causes the algorithm to notice.
I want to thrive says, what do you think of the Budget Bronco build channel? I like it. I like his stuff. I don't agree with like painting the wheels. I would have had those powder coated, just because paint's never gonna adhere properly to wheels that's already got coating on them. But I like what his thought of. He's doing like the Jay Leno inspired. The one from SEMA a couple years ago had like 500 horsepower or whatever.
Who's the
But
first person? This isn't a question in here, but it's a question for me. Who's the first person to swap this engine?
oh,
What's it going in?
oh, I think we'll see it at SEMA. Is what
Yeah.
I think, and everybody wants the Coyote, and that engine is too wide. Great engine, but I just don't. I don't know, man. I think the 2.7 is perfect.
Yeah.
I don't need a drag engine, but then again, does Ford need something to kind of compete with the 392? Which I think even for Wrangler, I think that's like a maybe 2 years and it fades away and you never hear more about it.
I think you'll see. I know that at one point Cobb was allegedly working on some sort of a tune that's gonna. I mean, because it's it's a turbocharged engine. It's you can modify it just on the computer level.
Yep.
But then I remember someone posting saying that the ECU is VIN locked,
Mm-hmm.
and it has I forget the exact what it is specifically, but it has an advanced algorithm attached to it where you can't simply just crack open. It essentially, if you modify some of the code, then the checksum's not going to validate, and it's going to brick the end. It's going to brick the ECM. So, are we going to see somebody like Cobb that will have connect with Ford directly and build some sort of a tune?
I think Ford has one for the 2.3 that they've announced. Ford Performance has one for that. Yeah, I think it's coming. I think Ford
bigger turbos. That would be what to do. Get a lot of power out of that.
Yeah, but if then you still got to be able to tune that to adjust to the turbos. They'll crack it. I mean, nobody's cracked the C8 yet, and
Nope.
it'll happen though eventually. There's too many smart people that'll try to attack that. Terrence Light-Bright sucks. You guys be nice.
They really don't like them.
Yeah, there's a few. I probably set the tone early with a couple channels, and they feed on it a little bit. But hey, man, like you said, there's an audience for everybody. So, and I greatly appreciate mine. So, guys, go over to Coderman, right?
Yes.
YouTube, and I'll drop a link in the description. Well, I already have one in the description. Go show some love. Check out his videos. Instagram. I love Instagram. It seems to be a dead app, though. It's not TikTok where, the 4 seconds of, man, the attention span is like ridiculous anymore. But I get sucked into it too. I'll get on TikTok and like 45 minutes later, you're like, what did I just do?
TikTok is a great medium to push people back to YouTube. I've found that.
Really?
Yeah.
So
create really short videos that are very targeted and have in the description or have in your bio or whatever, however you want to set it up. I have seen people come back, basically come out of TikTok to, I was like a specific video.
Whoa, wow. I've not, there's like to do this, you got to have 14 different social medias. Like it's a job in itself. Just trying to keep up with content of that, let alone do videos. But guys, go show Coderman Matt some love. And dude, I appreciate it greatly. I appreciate it so much. I'm losing my voice. So guys, if you have questions, hit him up on Instagram. I'm sure that's a pretty easy way to get a hold of you. Do you have a website at all?
I do actually have Coderman.com, which is for the channel, but I mean, it really is just kind of host the video, basically post content on the videos. I mean, the biggest thing is going to be Instagram for, communicating with me, and then YouTube for the videos, of course.
Well,
and in the comments on videos, I respond to every comment.
I try to as well. Yeah. I love it. Even sometimes the hate ones, I'll try to respond as nice as possible.
It will respond to hate comments if it's not a personal attack. If it's a personal attack, then I'm just going to ignore it.
Oh, I just delete those. I don't.
Or that, yeah.
Or if they talk about my backwards hat, I tend to like those for some weird reason. So there you go, guys. There was the two-door show. Matt, once again, I do greatly appreciate it. So go check out his channels, show him some love. And guys, we have some good guests coming up. We got Nathan with TFL coming up. We've got gosh, I can't think of her name now. Sorry. It's a good get too. Shelby Hall will be on the show coming up, who is she's seems to be Ford's Princess of Broncos, we'll say. And so I got a few guests coming up, man. So whether it be 2-wheel drive, four-wheel drive, you know the drill. It does not matter what you drive because this has been your All Terrain Nation, and we are